Throughout the annals of history, many facts are long forgotten or were never recorded at all. This can be accurate when regarding the time as humans were only lurking in caves, though it is unfortunate to think so. There are many tales of hardship across every corner of the world never going to be told, as well as cultures and traditions sunk by the rising tide. Deities and beliefs comprise a hefty portion of these past bygones. One deity, one very old, the first, was forgotten almost 15,000 years ago in the lands of Eastern Europe. Yes, the first god. No name was given for him. People of this time had no use of names yet. Our first ever belief of a higher power, conjured up in some tiny village. It was near the beginning of winter. His village of worshippers had yet to supply enough for the season. They were not allowed to hunt animals. It wasn't the way their god taught them. They could take crops, but not another living being. So, the villagers, despite the dire consequences that may develop, will only eat the supplies of vegetation they can accumulate in time before winter. Many believed their god will help them in their inevitable struggle in the snow, but a few in their community had hidden doubts. Winter came and the harsh storms targeted their village. They snuggled inside their huts. The outside was now a trap of white blindness and frost they couldn't enter. The people stayed in their beds, resting and eating the food that had been distributed. This was their routine for most of the winter, waking up, eating, sleeping. One girl from the village woke up early. She yawned and reached inside the nearest basket of rations and felt nothing. Empty. She looked inside other baskets, but same as the first one, they were empty. She had to think of a plan, so she wore the cloths of her bed around her and headed out into the snow. She approached the home of her neighbors, begging for any bit of leftover they might spare. They too had nothing. For the sake of their child, the neighbors joined her into asking the next huts. None of them knew this yet, but the entire village had no food. 2 months and the people already consumed the last batches of provisions. In spite of all that, the people remained vigilant for their god. This only furthered their desperation. Days went by, with their methods growing increasingly hopeless. Without a healthy source of food, people from the village usually had to go outside and pick anything edible from bushes or trees. Sometimes they went outside, picked out the grass from the snow, and swallowed it. Other times, they'd swallow the snow itself. Ingesting those things were their main cause of sickness. They were hungry before. Now they were starving. One man from the village reserved most of his meals for his younger brothers and sisters during the initial winter. He was now a pale, hungering sight of a man by the end of it. He lied motionless on his bed. He seemed almost dead. His eyes were shutting. He was using up any might he had left in his system to fight off the blackness encumbering him. But without anything to eat, sooner or later he will pass. His siblings sobbed by the bedside, and meanwhile a snow rabbit appeared on their doorstep. An idea lighted up in their heads. They grabbed the rabbit by the neck and looked for anything with a sharp end. They found a pointy stick and used it to stab the rabbit in its forehead, offering it to their dying brother. At first he was horrified by what he saw. He refused to do such a blasphemous thing in front of what they cared so much for, a divinity whose enlightening practices made them wonderful and civilized. But the man feels the burning, excruciating pain of hunger. Whether he liked it or not, or whether his god liked it or not, he had to consume the rabbit. He held it gently, as a sign of respect for the innocent little life his siblings took. Then he munched on the rabbit like a savage with his bare teeth. From this one desperate act hinging on his survival, he broke the codes of his god. From a spark of miracle, the blizzard slowly waned down. The terrain was yet to be suitable for farming, but it was for hunting. They needed to act now. There was no time for debating. This was the only chance they'll get to make it through the rest of the winter. The men, women, children, and the elderly headed out and grabbed with them spears, sticks, rocks, and anything resembling a weapon. They butchered every living creature stumbling in their way. Rabbits, raccoons, foxes, fish, stags, wolves, birds. Their old way was futile, they now believed. Ever since that one winter, they struck out to never fool themselves ever again. The people despised their god for the many families they lost on that winter. In time, The memory of this deity faded, blending in with the dust. The first symbol of a higher power created, and the first one forgotten. The first of many.